that kind of will make you do the work because you've made a commitment. You've said to someone, "I'm going to send this to you on Friday," and you know there's no real reason to, but you've now got something in your brain you're going to try and do. Okay, let's open this up to questions. Anybody got any questions?
When you got a script that you want to sell, right? How do you go about doing it? I mean, I guess you don't just send the script to producers because then your idea might get received.
Good question. And you mean like a TV thing or a film?
Just
Or?
a script. Like how do you send like a few scenes, or do you send like a whole thing, or like how do you meet up with the person and discuss it?
Great question. If people didn't hear it, if you've got a script, what do you do with it? Who do you send it to? And should you worry that people might steal your ideas? Which is a classic question that people often ask. I don't know what your takes on this. Do you want to start there?
Yeah, address the last question first. Should you worry people will steal ideas? Of course, definitely worry, man, but don't be paranoid. Yeah. How do you do it? There's ways. It depends on how you are going to send it. If you are sending it out as like a mess, and you send your treatment, which is basically what a synopsis of what the story is, and a little bit about the characters. So basically, it's like a sales pitch to hook the reader or your investor. Oh yeah, maybe this is a good story, you know. So that way, the writing will also be kind of different. So that way, when you write a treatment, you're not exactly writing for the story, but you're writing to sell the story. So yeah, I think I hope that answers the question.
I think specifically the first question you have to ask yourself, what kind of script is it? Is it a film script? Is it a TV script? I mean, for a TV script, it's a whole other, because TV programs get commissioned in a whole other different way from film. But I have to tell you one reality of the industry is that producers rarely read scripts. So if you send out a full-length script that's like 120 pages long, it's actually very hard to get anyone to read it, that could possibly invest in it. And that's just for a simple reason that, producers could be getting like 50 scripts a day. How do you read 1,000? I mean, here they probably don't get 50 scripts a day, but they do get a lot. I mean, they get a lot of scripts to read. Aside from that, they have to read a ton of other stuff, contracts and stuff. So, if there's any reason for people to, if writers are good at procrastinating from writing, producers are very good at procrastinating from reading scripts. The quickest, for me, the most efficient way is to actually, it goes back to networking, is to actually meet producers, find out, kind of get to know the industry. Even if you, for example, if you wanted to break into the TV industry, you know that there are production companies. If you look at the end credits at the end of programs that you want to watch, whether you want to do dramas, whether you want to do dramas, whether you want to do documentaries, at the end there are always credits, and you'll see after a while there's a pattern. Certain production companies specialize in doing certain genres of programs. So you would never go, you would never come up with a great documentary pitch and then pitch it to a production company that does, mainly TV dramas, because firstly, they might not have much interest in that field. So you have to kind of be very focused. I think if you have an idea or you have a script that you want to get out there, you kind of you do have to network, you do have to meet people, and you find that it actually cuts through a lot of red tape. If you actually know people, or you've met people at this networking session, or you met that person at a screenwriters luncheon, or you've met somebody, and then you just go, okay, do you remember me? I spoke to you about this idea, and you said it was kind of interesting. That's the best way to actually get your foot in the door, is to actually, because despite cyberspace, despite the fact that we do most of our communication by text messaging and everything, there's nothing that moves a project more quickly in this industry than actually a face-to-face.
Yeah, it's a relationship business. Just the idea, people worry about sending stuff out, even if it's like a synopsis, that people might steal their ideas. What's your take on that? Should people be worried?
I think it's, well, you can't copyright an idea. You can copyright a treatment, you can copyright a script. So, by and large, even today when I send out stuff, there's no, I have no guarantee that something similar isn't going to appear. And sometimes it's not necessarily because somebody ripped off my idea. It's just that it's in the air. Hollywood themselves rushed into production on 2 movies. When there was an outbreak, and what was the other one? I mean, it's happened everywhere. I mean, sometimes there are topics that are just so current. For example, now if you suddenly see a spate of army-related movies, are you going to go, oh, they stole my idea? It's just that certain things become more current when something succeeds. For me, actually, the only protection is have a lot of ideas. Don't spend your whole life trying to get one idea off the ground. If you basically have a lot of ideas and you can develop them to the point where there's characters, there's a story, even if people kind of take that premise and do something else with it, they can't actually they don't have any right to kind of rip off a story or characters, because that's specific to what you're doing. And if you send someone a general idea and say, okay, I'd like to do a story about people in an old folks home, and something else comes up similar to that, you have actually no cause to kind of go, you stole my idea, because really that's it's so general and unspecific that anybody could have come up with it. But if it has certain characters and there's certain plot lines and storylines, and you see those characters and plot lines in the produced film, there's actually legal recourse. You can take legal recourse. There are actually lawyers who specialize in IP law, and it's a lot more advanced nowadays. It just costs a lot of money to hire lawyers, so you have to consider whether it's worth it, but that's another whole other story. But like I said, I think the best cure for the paranoia of having your idea stolen is just keep developing ideas. Don't always have one idea, have 10 ideas, So if one goes down, you've got another 9, And I think that's the mark of writing. I mean, other people produce. I mean, producers don't just have one movie that they're trying to make all their lives. They have like 5 or 6 going at the same time. Directors are looking at 5 or 6 scripts. So why shouldn't a writer be considering 5 or 6 ideas at the same time?
Any other questions? Okay. How many people in the room have kind of written scripts? How many people have started writing a script for like a film or a TV project? Okay. How many people would like to write scripts and films here? How many people have been so inspired by this that they're... Well, maybe we can, if people don't have any more comments, maybe we can just sort of say some things. I mean, there is a kind of little industry around advice for screenwriters, and I'm sure you might have seen some of these things in your college libraries, books by people like Robert McKee and Sid Field. They tend to be American. We were just talking about them earlier, the script gurus, and there are certain kind of very set ways of learning about story. So maybe we could kind of like, for the last part of the session, we've got about 10 minutes. Maybe we can talk a little bit about kind of like more, like actual writing advice in terms of what are the things that you would suggest writers do if you're thinking of, getting ideas, thinking about a story. You kind of sort of talked a little bit about this before with your missoir, your grandmother's missoir, but maybe you can just say, what can people read or see or do that can help them with their writing?
Well, the number one thing that comes to mind is do something else other than writing. Yeah, I think it's very important to create, not with just the pen and paper, but with your hands as well. And there are many, if you like music, really, if you love to create some music, go and play an instrument, or do something else other than writing. Usually that kind of exposure, because writing is really a combination of your experience and your interest, your passion, and everything. So expose yourself to the world. You go in, if you like music, go make some music. If you like to look at beautiful objects, go paint, go do pottery. A lot of I think if I don't know, Akira Kurosawa started out as a potter in Japan. So yeah, I think it's very important to think of to think laterally when it comes to writing.
What was it? Advice?
What would you suggest people read if they're coming to screenwriting? Is there a book to read? Is there a thing to watch, or just generally? I mean, you talked about reading earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are books on screenwriting, screenplay formats, and I mean, you can pretty much watch movies. You know, you can pretty much borrow or steal as much as you want from what is around. But as Gerald said, I think to some extent the structure of screenplays and the structure of films or television is usually quite set. But what you bring to it yourself, as a writer, is something that comes, I think, from who you are and who you want to be, and basically your backgrounds. It's that kind of experience that's unique, that when you marry it with, because I mean, it's true that there may only be 12 original ideas in the world. I don't know who thought of that. I think it was a Greek. I think it was an Aristotle. Yeah, that there are only like 12 ideas, story ideas, in the world. But what makes it different is basically what you bring to it as an individual, because you never live the same life. So if you're gonna borrow or you're gonna steal, what you should be stealing is format, is structure, but you should never steal an idea, never remake somebody else's movie. I mean, I think in the early years of film and television in Singapore, I think, and it's a mark of being a young industry. I think we look at we look at Hollywood, we look at Hong Kong, we go, okay, they made a police drama, we'll make a police drama, and that's perfectly fine. But the thing is, I think what we're learning to do now is to say, okay, we'll use this format, but where the stories are concerned and the characters are concerned, we're going to plug in essentially our experiences that are real to us and that are specific to our culture or our person. I mean, I guess a very good example. I mean, I just finished Code of Law last year. I mean, if you look at the structure of Code of Law, it's essentially law and order. It's half police investigation and half lawyers. Although they do the prosecution, we do the defense. And that didn't really come out of looking at law and order and saying, we'd like to copy the format. It came out of the fact that basically, I think Network wanted a legal drama, but they wanted a crime element to it. And the only way that, and after going through 3 months of development and trying to figure out how to marry the two, we realized that we came to the same conclusion that I guess the people in Law and Order did, is that you can't marry both of them. It has to be a procedural, and you kind of have to just split down the middle. But what we tried to do is rather than kind of so we did in a sense borrow that format. But what we tried to do was we did a lot of research with legal consultants and even people in the police force, and we said, what's specific about the legal system here and about the criminal justice system. And the series and the content of the series is a result of that, because a lot of the cases that we explored, we came from kind of a very local viewpoint. Some of the storylines and some of the plot points were also were really taken from the cases as they developed. We just had to change them enough so we wouldn't run into trouble. We wouldn't run into rights issues with the actual people involved in the cases. But I think in a large extent that I wouldn't say, I think if you can come up with an original, something that's completely original in terms of the format, in terms of the structure, that's great. But I think what we kind of latch on to is the unique experience or a unique voice that comes from somebody other than ourselves and provides a new perspective onto something that's familiar. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
And of course, the only way to kind of find that unique voice is through writing and just whatever format might take, just doing it, right? Just get on with it and do it and learn about what your voice is or where it might go or what you like to do or what you're good at doing, and you can only do that by actually the difficult and often painful process of actually sitting down and writing. And I'm sure, I bet people have been saying that all day in these sessions about writing. Like it can be great, can be really good fun. Most of the time it isn't. Or when when something really kind of surprises you. Most of the time it's a slog. Anybody got any other questions or comments? I don't want to. People shaking their heads.
I have a question. What's the future for screenwriting? Since technology is so evolving so fast, do you think that the internet and social media has a great role to play for screenwriters?
Okay, we sort of touched on this earlier, but we can develop this a bit more.
So can you repeat your question again?
What's the future role for screenwriters in the future, especially when it comes to social media and the internet?
Definitely, the future is that we will consume the media in many, many different ways, and probably in ways that the 60s will probably think is, oh man, this guy must be high on drugs to see it that way. But yeah, but I think the core, the essential of script writing is still the same, the story. No matter how you try to tell a story, a story is a story, and the important thing is to really remember what you are trying to tell, and not to worry how you're going to do it. Yeah, I think that is the future, because I think right now because of the new technologies, we want to play with all the different formats. I'm guilty of that as well, and we're going to try out this and try out that. But we must always take a step back and remember, what do we want to tell? Yeah.
Well, I think the answer is if you're trying to get a new web drama or a new something new, anything across, no matter how new the technology, the question comes down to, can you actually start a project without a writer? If somebody has to, you have to sign up on something, right? Somebody has to write, even if whether it's a drama, whether it's a proposal, whether it's a one-page description of a project, whether it's a summary, somebody's got to write it. So at the end of the day, even after 100 years of evolution, we come back to, I think, one thing, and that is content is still king. I mean, I can't remember who said that, but it's still down to the fact that I think no matter how new the technology, no matter what it does for us, I think at the end of the day, when you have to ask yourselves, when you sit down and watch something, when you consume, whether it's something on YouTube, whether it's something on your mobile, whether it's on your iPad, whether it's on TV, whether it's in a movie, what are you really looking for? Are you really looking for, oh my God, this is, the technology is groundbreaking, look at the resolution on the pixels. You still want the same thing, whether you're watching, the latest Harlem Shake video, or or some video of a baby, trying to, bumping into a TV screen and falling down. You're trying to relate from a perspective of the storytelling, because it's from the perspective of, okay, what happens next, and that is essentially the crux of what storytelling is about. It's basically keeping the audience asking what happens next.
I think that's as good as any a note to wrap up. I'd just like to thank the panelists, DJ and Daryl. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you for sitting and listening to